The massive Galactic Council chamber stretched for miles in every direction, its crystalline walls reflecting the light from 1,000 different suns. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their designated sections, each species maintaining the careful distance that had kept peace for over 500 years. Today, however, that peace felt fragile. Ambassador Velthar of the Thylorian delegation moved through the chamber with shaking steps. His people were known throughout the galaxy for their calm wisdom and advanced healing technologies. They had helped countless species recover from wars, plagues, and disasters. But now, for the first time in their recorded history, they were the ones asking for help. The Thylorians looked like gentle deer crossed with intelligent beings. Their large, soft eyes could see beyond normal light spectrums, making them excellent researchers and doctors. Their hands, delicate but precise, had saved millions of lives across the galaxy. They had never built weapons, never trained soldiers, never even considered the need for military protection. The Galactic Council's peace had been their shield. For 3 centuries, Velthar reached the center speaking platform, his hooves clicking against the polished floor. Every eye sensor and optical organ in the chamber focused on him. His usual composure, the peaceful confidence that made him such an effective ambassador, had completely crumbled. His fur, normally a pristine silver, appeared disheveled and dull with stress. "Honored council members," he began, his voice carrying across the vast space through translation devices that converted his words into hundreds of different languages and communication methods. "I come before you today not as a representative of Thylorian progress, but as a survivor begging for salvation." The chamber stirred. Many representatives had never heard such desperate words from the usually diplomatic Thylorians. "The Vex swarm," Velthar continued, his voice cracking, "has breached our outer defense satellites. These creatures, these monsters from the dark between stars, are consuming everything in their path. Our beautiful medical facilities where we train healers from across the galaxy are being devoured. Our research stations that develop cures for galactic diseases are burning. Our peaceful cities, where children learn to help others, are under attack." He paused, struggling to maintain control. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "We have no military," Velthar admitted, the words seeming to cause him physical pain. "No weapons, no warships, no trained soldiers. We never believed we would need them. Our entire civilization is built around preserving life, not taking it. We don't even know how to fight these creatures that seem to exist only to destroy and consume." Council Admiral Zephyros rose from his position in the military section. The Altarian was an impressive sight, standing nearly 12 feet tall with a shell-like carapace that bore the scars of countless battles. His species had been warriors for millennia, their honor earned through combat and protection of the weak. Deep claw marks across his armor told stories of desperate fights against impossible odds. "Ambassador Velthar," Zephyros spoke with the deep rumble of someone used to commanding fleets, "the Vex swarm destroyed my 3rd fleet just last month. 300 of our most advanced warships, equipped with weapons that could crack planets, barely managed to scratch their biohulls before being consumed. My finest warriors, soldiers who had never known defeat, were overwhelmed in minutes." The Admiral's words sent a chill through the assembly. The Altarian 3rd Fleet was legendary throughout the galaxy for its victories against pirates, rebels, and other threats to Council space. If they couldn't stop the Vex, what could? One by one, species representatives began declining to help. The Zentorans cited their recent losses to Vex scouts. The Meridian Collective explained their fleets were already stretched thin, protecting their own territories. The Orion Federation quietly mentioned their analysis, showing the Vex had adapted to overcome their most advanced weapons. Fear spread through the chamber like a virus. The Vex swarm wasn't just another enemy that could be negotiated with, bought, off, or intimidated into retreating. They were a force of pure consumption, turning everything they touched into more of themselves. Entire star systems had gone dark, their planets stripped bare and converted into breeding grounds for more Vex creatures. In the far corner of the chamber, in one of the smaller delegate sections reserved for newer council members, a minor representative raised a tentacle. The being was from a species so recently contacted that many older delegates couldn't even pronounce their name correctly. "What about the humans?" the delegate suggested hesitantly. They're new to the council, but perhaps they might have different ideas or approaches we haven't considered. The suggestion was met with immediate scoffs and dismissive sounds from across the chamber. Humans were barely past their industrial age when first contact had been made only decades ago. They had been admitted to the Galactic Council more as an interesting curiosity than as a serious military or political power. Their technology was primitive compared to species that had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. The humans? Admiral Zephyros couldn't hide his skepticism. They've barely learned to travel between their own planets efficiently. What could they possibly offer against a threat that has defeated our most advanced civilizations? Other delegates murmured agreement. Humans were known for being stubborn and sometimes creative, but they lacked the advanced technology, massive fleets, or centuries of military experience that had failed against the Vex. Their weapons were crude, their ships were small, and their understanding of galactic warfare was limited to textbooks and simulations. Ambassador Velthar looked around the chamber at the sea of refusing faces, declining gestures, and turning backs. His people were dying while the galaxy's greatest powers declared the situation hopeless. His large eyes, evolved to see hope in the darkest situations, began to glisten with desperate tears. "Please," he whispered, then louder, "please, I'll accept any help, any assistance, even from the humans, even from anyone willing to try. My people are dying while we debate the odds of success. Children are crying for parents who will never come home. Healers who have saved countless lives across the galaxy are being consumed by creatures that care nothing for the good they've done." The chamber fell silent except for the quiet hum of life support systems and translation devices. In that moment, every representative understood that they were witnessing the potential end of one of the galaxy's most beloved species. The Thelorians, who had asked for nothing but had given so much, were facing extinction, while their friends and allies watched helplessly. The desperate plea hung in the air like a challenge to everything the Galactic Council claimed to represent. 3. Days after Ambassador Velthar's desperate plea echoed through the Galactic Council chamber, Earth's response arrived via quantum transmission. The Council's communication specialists had expected the usual diplomatic dance of negotiations, conditions, and careful planning that preceded any military assistance. Instead, they received a message so brief and direct that many delegates wondered if it was a translation error. Message received: Reaper Squad deploying. Maintain safe distance from target zone. Operation timeline, 72 hours maximum. The message contained no requests for resources, no questions about enemy numbers or capabilities, no diplomatic protocols about rules of engagement. Just a simple statement of intent that left the entire council scratching their heads, tentacles, and various other appendages in confusion. Admiral Zephyros studied the transmission data with growing bewilderment. Where are their fleet movement orders, their supply chain requirements, their casualty evacuation plans? This reads like they're planning a weekend camping trip, not a military operation against the most dangerous threat in galactic history. The confusion deepened when Earth's transport arrived at the Council staging area. Instead of the massive troop carriers or heavily armed battleships that other species would have sent, a single stealth vessel appeared on the sensors. The ship was sleek, black, and completely unremarkable compared to the imposing warships of other Council species. It looked more like a courier vessel than a military transport. From this modest ship emerged exactly 12 humans. The assembled Council representatives who had gathered to witness this historic moment fell silent as the humans disembarked. These weren't the enthusiastic young soldiers or grizzled veterans that other species typically sent on dangerous missions. They moved with a fluid precision that made seasoned warriors instinctively step back. Each human carried equipment that registered as completely unknown to the Council's advanced scanners. Their leader, a human who introduced himself simply as Commander Park Woo-jin, looked nothing like the heroic figures from Galactic Adventure stories. He was average height, quietly spoken, and had the kind of calm demeanor that somehow felt more threatening than the loudest battle cry. When he smiled politely at the assembled delegates, several species representatives felt an unexplained chill run through their various nervous systems. His second-in-command, Lee So-young, was calibrating a device that appeared to bend light around itself. When curious alien technicians tried to scan it, their instruments simply refused to register its existence. The other 10 humans were equally mysterious, each carrying gear that seemed to operate on principles that violated several known laws of physics. Admiral Zephyros, despite his reservations about human capabilities, felt compelled to address the obvious problem. "Commander, with all due respect, you're facing approximately 8,000 Vex bioships, each one capable of consuming an entire planet. My third fleet had 300 vessels with crews of over 2,000 each, and we barely escaped with our lives. 12 soldiers, however skilled, cannot possibly handle such numbers." Park Woo-jin's response was delivered with the same calm tone he might use to discuss the weather. "Admiral, when you have a pest problem in your home, you don't call an army to deal with it. You call an exterminator who knows how to eliminate the specific pest efficiently." The human medic, Kim Do-hyun, looked up from his equipment preparation without seeming concerned about the staggering odds they faced. "How many confirmed bioship contacts are we looking at in the target zone?" "Approximately 8,000 active vessels," reported the Council's tactical officer, his voice betraying his disbelief that anyone would ask such a question so casually. Another human, Choi Ha-nul, who appeared to be handling some kind of demolitions equipment, actually grinned at this information. "Good numbers. It's been a while since we had a proper hunt. The last cleanup operation was only about 2,000 targets." The assembled delegates exchanged worried glances. These humans were talking about facing an extinction-level threat with the same casual attitude that others might discuss a routine maintenance job. Either they were completely insane, or they knew something that the rest of the galaxy didn't. Council representatives began expressing their concerns more openly. The Zentoran delegate worried about humanity's apparent arrogance in the face of such overwhelming odds. The Meridian Collective questioned whether humans truly understood what they were volunteering for. Several species suggested that perhaps humanity should reconsider and send proper military support instead of what appeared to be a small special operations team. Ambassador Velthar, however, stepped forward with tears still glistening in his large eyes. "Honored Council members, my people are dying while we debate the size of the rescue force. These humans have volunteered to help when no one else would. I welcome their assistance, regardless of their numbers." As Reaper Squad prepared to depart, their pilot Jung Min-ho conducted final system checks on their transport with the same methodical precision that characterized all their actions. The ship's engines hummed with a frequency that seemed to make nearby alien technology behave strangely, as if the human vessel operated on principles that other species hadn't discovered yet. Just before departure, the Council's intelligence services intercepted fragments of human military communications that provided disturbing context to the situation. The transmissions were heavily encrypted, but what they could decode revealed that this wasn't Reaper Squad's first mission of this type. References to Kepler Prime cleanup and vegan sector pest elimination suggested that humanity had been dealing with similar threats for some time. More troubling were the efficiency reports that mentioned total elimination achieved in under 48 hours and 0 survivor protocols maintained. One intercepted message that chilled even battle-hardened Council military officers read, "Reaper Squad, you are cleared for unrestricted pest control operations. Rules of engagement. There are no rules. Make sure nothing survives to spread." Admiral 8. Zephyros studied these communications with growing unease. What kind of species creates soldiers who talk about extermination with such casual efficiency? And what other threats have they been eliminating that we know nothing about? As the human transport disappeared into hyperspace, heading toward the Vex-infested Thylorian system, the Council was left with more questions than answers. Had they just witnessed the deployment of humanity's most elite warriors, or had they unknowingly sent 12 people to their deaths against impossible odds? The intercepted communications suggested that humanity had been fighting wars that the rest of the galaxy didn't even know existed. And if the casual confidence of Reaper Squad was any indication, they had been winning those wars decisively. The Council would have their answer within 72 hours, just as the humans had promised. The Thylorian home system looked like a vision of hell when the Council's observation fleet arrived. What had once been a peaceful collection of research stations, medical facilities, and beautiful garden worlds was now a writhing mass of organic nightmares. Thousands of Vex bioships moved through space like enormous insects, their chitinous hulls gleaming with a sickly wetness that reflected the dying light of burning space stations. The bioships weren't mechanical constructs like normal spacecraft. They were living creatures, grown rather than built, with pulsing veins visible beneath their armored exteriors. Some were as small as fighters, darting between larger vessels like parasitic wasps. Others stretched for miles, their massive forms bristling with weapon growth that could crack planets. All of them moved with the coordinated precision of a hive mind that had consumed countless civilizations. Council Admiral Zephyros commanded the defensive perimeter from his flagship, keeping the combined fleet at what military doctrine considered a safe distance. His ships formed a protective barrier around the system's edge, their weapons trained on the Vex swarm but not advancing. Every tactical manual in galactic military history said the same thing: never engage the Vex in close quarters, never enter their formation, and never allow them to board your vessels. Maintain defensive positions, Zephyros ordered his fleet commanders. Do not advance beyond the outer marker, boys. We're here to observe and provide emergency extraction if somehow any of those humans survive. The various species in the fleet watched their scanners with growing dread. The Vex swarm had grown even larger since their initial reports. Bioships were literally feeding on the destroyed Thylorian infrastructure, converting matter into more of themselves. Soon, there would be nothing left of the peaceful civilization that had helped heal the galaxy for centuries. Then, without warning, a single small transport appeared on their sensors. Jung Min-ho piloted the human vessel with a precision that seemed impossible, given the chaotic swarm of hostile bioships filling the system. Instead of maintaining a safe distance like every military protocol demanded, he aimed the transport directly toward the thickest concentration of Vex vessels. The Council observers watched in horror as the human ship accelerated toward what appeared to be certain destruction. "What are they doing?" gasped a Zentoran fleet commander. "They're flying straight into the swarm's heart. That's suicide, Admiral." Zephyros studied the tactical display with growing disbelief. They're not following any recognized attack pattern. They're not even trying to engage the bioships with weapons. What kind of strategy is this? The answer became clear as the human transport reached the first cluster of Vex bioships. Instead of opening fire with conventional weapons, the vessel suddenly released dozens of small pods that shot toward the organic hulls like bullets. These weren't missiles or bombs, but boarding pods designed to punch through bioship armor and deploy teams inside. Every military expert in the Council fleet knew that boarding a Vex bioship was considered impossible. The creature's internal environment was acidic, poisonous, and filled with defensive organisms that could dissolve most known species in seconds. Even if someone somehow survived long enough to get inside, the bioships were essentially living fortresses with immune systems that attacked any foreign presence. But the humans had apparently never read those tactical manuals. Yoon Jae-min, Reaper Squad's infiltration specialist, led the first boarding team. His pod punched through the chitinous hull of a massive bioship with a sound like breaking bones. Before the creature's immune system could react, he and two other humans were inside the organic corridors, moving with a speed and purpose that suggested they had done this many times before. The Council's sensors couldn't penetrate the bioship hulls to see what was happening inside, but the external behavior of the Vex vessels told a terrifying story. Bioships that had been moving in perfect coordination suddenly began writhing and convulsing as if in agony. Their organized formation broke apart as individual vessels started fleeing in random directions. Song Yoon-ji led the second wave of boarding teams, her close-quarters combat specialists spreading throughout the swarm like a virus. Each boarding action seemed to cause multiple bioships to react with what could only be described as panic. The creatures that had shown no emotion while consuming entire planets were suddenly displaying something that looked remarkably like fear. "How is this possible?" Admiral Zephyros muttered, watching his tactical display with growing amazement. "The Vex don't experience fear. They're a hive mind. Individual death doesn't affect them. The answer came from intercepted human communications that the Council's intelligence officers were frantically trying to decode. The fragments they could understand suggested that humanity had spent considerable time studying Vex biology and psychology. They had identified pain receptors and neural pathways that the hive mind couldn't simply shut down or ignore. More disturbing was the revelation that each kill inside a bioship was somehow being broadcast through the swarm's shared consciousness. Every time a human eliminated a Vex creature, thousands of other drones experienced that death as if it were happening to them personally. The hive mind that gave the Vex their coordination was becoming a liability, forcing them to feel every moment of their comrades' destruction. But the psychological warfare was just beginning. Bei Sungho, operating from inside one of the larger bioships, had somehow managed to hack into the Vex communication frequencies. The sounds that began broadcasting through the swarm's neural network made even hardened Council military officers feel sick to their stomachs. They were recordings of dying hive queens from what must have been previous encounters. Their death, screams preserved and weaponized. The effect on the Vex swarm was immediate and devastating. Bioships that had been attacking Thylorian survivors suddenly stopped their assault and began fleeing toward the system's edge. The coordinated hunting pack that had terrorized the galaxy was dissolving into a panicked mob of creatures trying to escape something they had never encountered before. "Impossible," whispered a Meridian Collective observer. "The Vex have never retreated from anything. They don't even have the concept of retreat in their behavior patterns." Admiral Zephyros studied the chaos spreading through the enemy formation, with a mixture of awe and growing dread. How many other species have these humans fought that we know nothing about? How many other threats have they eliminated while the rest of us remained ignorant? The tactical display showed Reaper Squad's boarding pods moving through the swarm like antibodies fighting an infection. Each successful boarding action triggered a cascade of panic that spread to dozens of other bioships. The creatures that had consumed entire star systems were being systematically hunted by 12 humans who seemed to understand their weaknesses better than the Vex understood themselves. As Council observers watched the systematic destruction of a threat that had seemed unstoppable, one question echoed through every mind present. What kind of world creates hunters capable of making the galaxy's most feared predators into prey? The humans weren't just fighting the Vex, they were exterminating them with the cold efficiency of professionals who had clearly done this work before. And the ease with which they operated suggested that this was far from their first encounter with threats that the rest of the galaxy couldn't handle. The Thylorian system was witnessing something unprecedented. The Vex swarm, learning what it meant to be afraid. The impossible was happening before the eyes of every Council observer in the Thylorian system. For over 3,000 years of recorded galactic history, the Vex swarm had been the ultimate nightmare, an unstoppable force that consumed everything in its path. Entire civilizations had been devoured, whole star systems stripped bare, and countless species driven to extinction by these creatures that knew only hunger and expansion. Now, for the first time since their discovery, a Vex hive mind was retreating. The bioships that had moved with such terrifying coordination just hours before were now scattering in every direction like frightened animals. Their perfect formation had dissolved into chaos as individual vessels fled toward the system's edge, desperately trying to escape the 12 humans who had somehow turned their greatest strength into their most devastating weakness. Admiral Zephyros watched his tactical display with the stunned expression of someone witnessing the laws of physics being casually rewritten. In 3 centuries of military service, I have never seen anything like this. The Vex don't retreat. They don't know how to retreat. Their entire existence is built around consuming and expanding, but the humans had somehow taught them fear. Oh Seo-jun, working from inside one of the central bioships, had accomplished something that the galaxy's greatest scientists had declared impossible. Using technology that seemed to operate outside known physical laws, he had isolated and identified the queen nodes that controlled the swarm's hive-mind connection. These biological command centers, hidden deep within the largest bioships, had remained undetected by every previous military engagement. The equipment Seo Jun used defied easy explanation. It appeared to scan not just through matter, but through dimensions that other species couldn't even perceive. His readings showed the invisible neural networks that connected thousands of bioships across light years of space, revealing the swarm's true structure for the first time. Target identified. Seo Jun's calm voice came through the communication system. Queen node cluster at coordinates mark 77, multiple control nexuses detected, beginning surgical strikes. Han Yu-jin led the precision strikes that followed, moving through the bioship corridors with his team like surgeons performing a delicate operation. But instead of healing, they were severing the neural connections that allowed the hive mind to function. Each cut they made was precise and calculated, designed to cause maximum disruption to the swarm's command structure. The effect was immediate and devastating. As the queen nodes were eliminated one by one, thousands of Vex drones found themselves suddenly cut off from the collective consciousness that had guided their every action. Bioships that had moved with perfect coordination began drifting aimlessly, their crews reduced to mindless creatures unable to function without central control. "It's like watching someone perform brain surgery on an entire fleet," whispered a Zentoran medical officer. How did they know exactly where to cut? The answer lay in humanity's approach to warfare, which was fundamentally different from every other species in the galaxy. While others focused on destroying enemies through superior firepower or overwhelming numbers, humans studied their targets with the patience of scientists and the ruthlessness of predators. They had clearly encountered the Vex before and learned to see them not as an unstoppable force, but as a biological system with specific vulnerabilities. As the hive mind's control structure collapsed, the remaining conscious Vex bioships attempted to escape the system. Their retreat was panicked and disorganized, unlike anything in their species' history. They fled toward every possible exit point, desperate to carry word of this new threat to other swarms scattered across the galaxy. But they had underestimated humanity's capacity for strategic thinking. Lim Jiwoo, Reaper Squad's strategist, had spent the first phase of the operation doing more than just planning attacks on individual bioships. She had been studying the system's gravitational fields, hyperspace entry points, and every possible escape route that the Vex might use. While her teammates were busy hunting inside the swarm, she had been setting traps. The fleeing bioships discovered their escape routes blocked by gravity mines that pulled them out of hyperspace and interdiction, fields that prevented faster-than-light travel. Every exit from the system had been anticipated and sealed. The Vex, who had never needed to plan retreat strategies because they had never retreated, found themselves trapped in a killing ground designed specifically for their destruction. She predicted every move they would make, Admiral Zephyros observed with growing unease. How long have these humans been studying Vex behavior? How many encounters have they had that we know nothing about? Ambassador Veltha, watching from the Council observation ship, felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental systems. The gentle Thylorian had spent his life surrounded by healers and peacekeepers, beings who devoted themselves to preserving and nurturing life. What he was witnessing now was the opposite extreme, beings who had clearly evolved to end life with terrifying efficiency. "They're not just soldiers," he whispered to his aide, his large eyes reflecting the tactical display's glow. "They're designed killers, purpose-built for elimination. What kind of world produces such creatures? What threats did they face that turned them into this?" The systematic processing of the trapped Vex fleet continued with mechanical precision. Each bioship was boarded, its crew eliminated, and its biological systems shut down permanently. The humans worked with the calm efficiency of exterminators dealing with a particularly stubborn infestation, showing no emotion or hesitation as they methodically destroyed creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. But the most disturbing moment came when Commander Park Woo-jin approached the final target, a massive queen ship that dwarfed even the largest Council battleships. This bioconstruct had survived dozens of major galactic battles, its thick armor and defensive systems making it nearly indestructible. Previous military engagements had required entire fleets just to damage such vessels. Park Woo-jin boarded. It alone, The council observers watched their senses in stunned silence as a single human entered the most dangerous Vex vessel in the swarm. What followed defied every expectation they had about individual combat capabilities versus overwhelming odds. The screams that began echoing through the hive mind's neural network made hardened military officers cover their audio receptors in horror. These weren't just sounds of death, but something far worse, the death cries of a creature that had never known fear, discovering terror in its final moments. The massive queenship, which had coordinated the consumption of entire star systems, was being systematically dismantled from the inside by a single human who moved through its corridors like death itself. The bioconstruct's own immune systems, designed to repel any foreign presence, seemed powerless against whatever Park Woo-jin was doing inside its living halls. The screams continued for exactly 17 minutes, each one transmitted through the swarm's neural network to every surviving Vex creature in the system. Then suddenly there was silence. The queenship's biosigns flatlined completely. The massive creature that had been the swarm's central intelligence was dead, killed by one human who had somehow turned the galaxy's most feared predator into prey. In the growing quiet of the Thylorian system, where thousands of bioships now drifted as lifeless hulks, the council observers began to understand what they had witnessed. Humanity hadn't just defeated the Vex swarm, they had revealed themselves as something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The galaxy's newest members weren't primitive newcomers learning to survive among advanced civilizations. They were apex predators who had been quietly eliminating threats that other species couldn't even comprehend. And now everyone knew it. Exactly 48 hours after Reaper Squad's arrival in the Thylorian system, an eerie silence filled the space that had once writhed with thousands of hostile bioships. The massive Vex swarm that had terrorized entire sectors of the galaxy for over 3 centuries was gone. Not retreated, not scattered to other systems, but completely and utterly extinct. Every single bioship floated dead in space, their organic hulls cracked and lifeless. The creatures that had consumed entire civilizations, stripped bare dozens of star systems, and driven countless species to extinction, had been systematically eliminated by 12 humans in less than 2 days. The Council observation fleet moved carefully through the debris field, their sensors confirming what seemed impossible to believe. Total elimination, reported Admiral Zephyros to the assembled Council representatives. Our scanners detect no living Vex tissue anywhere in the system. No eggs, no spores, no dormant organisms. Nothing that could regenerate or rebuild the swarm. They're gone. Completely gone. The Thylorian survivors, rescued from hidden shelters and emergency bunkers scattered across their homeworld, emerged to find their system cleansed of the nightmare that had threatened to devour everything they had built over centuries. Their beautiful research stations could be rebuilt, their medical facilities restored, their peaceful civilization given a chance to continue helping heal the galaxy. Ambassador Velthar, tears streaming down his fur-covered face, approached Commander Park Woo-jin as Reaper Squad prepared to depart. The grateful Thylorian carried with him authorization for the most generous payment package in Council history. "Commander," Velthar said, his voice trembling with emotion, "my people owe you a debt that can never be fully repaid. Please accept our entire technological database, 3 centuries of medical advances, healing techniques that could benefit species across the galaxy. We also offer exclusive mining rights to 3 of our outer systems, rich in rare minerals, worth more than most planetary economies." The assembled Council representatives nodded approvingly. Such a payment would make any military force wealthy, beyond imagination. The Thylorian medical database alone contained cures for diseases that plagued dozens of species. The mining rights could fund entire civilizations for generations. Park Woo-jin listened politely, then shook his head with the same calm demeanor he had maintained throughout the entire operation. "And we appreciate the offer, Ambassador, but we must decline," he said simply. "We don't want your resources, your technology, or your mining rights." The Council representatives exchanged confused glances. What military force would refuse such incredible wealth? What government would turn down technology that could advance their civilization by centuries? Park Woo-jin turned to face the assembled delegates, his expression becoming more serious. What we want is your understanding. When humanity asked to join this council, we requested to be treated as equals. Instead, you treated us like primitive curiosities, barely worth acknowledging in your important discussions. You dismissed our capabilities, ignored our offers to help with galactic problems, and generally acted as if we were children playing at being adults. The commander's words carried no anger or bitterness, just a cold statement of fact that made several delegates shift uncomfortably. Remember this moment the next time you need something eliminated, Park Woo-jin continued. Remember that the primitives you looked down on were the ones who solved a problem that your advanced civilizations couldn't handle. Remember that when you face the next impossible threat, and you will face another one. As Reaper Squad's transport prepared for departure, the Council's intelligence services were frantically analyzing intercepted communications from Earth's military networks. What they discovered sent shockwaves through every government representative present. Dozens of requests for pest control services were flooding humanity's military command centers. Species that had openly mocked human capabilities just days ago were now quietly sending desperate messages requesting assistance with their own impossible problems. Apparently, word of Reaper Squad's success had spread faster than official council communications. The Zentoran Confederacy was requesting help with something called the Creeping Dark that was consuming their outer colonies. The Meridian Collective needed assistance with quantum parasites that were destabilizing their technology. Even the proud Altarian Empire had sent a carefully worded inquiry about biological anomalies threatening their core worlds. Each request was marked with the same classification: extinction-level threat requiring immediate response. Admiral Zephyros, who had spent the past 2 days questioning everything he thought he knew about warfare, approached Park Woo-jin before the human transport could depart. The massive Altarian warrior, covered in scars from countless battles, looked surprisingly humble as he spoke. "Commander, I must ask you something that has been troubling me since you arrived. What manner of world creates soldiers like you and your team? What kind of environment produces beings capable of such precise, efficient elimination of threats that terrify the rest of the galaxy?" Park Woo-jin's smile in response was colder than the vacuum of space itself, and somehow more terrifying than any battle cry or threatening gesture could have been. "Admiral, we come from a world where everything wants to kill you," he explained, with matter-of-fact calmness. "Our planet is filled with creatures that hunt in packs, plants that can dissolve flesh, weather that can freeze or burn you to death, and diseases that can wipe out entire populations. We didn't become apex predators by accident or through some genetic quirk. We became them by necessity." He paused, letting the implications sink in before continuing. "Every other species in this galaxy evolved on worlds that were relatively safe, where cooperation and peaceful development were possible. You built great civilizations because you didn't have to spend every moment fighting for survival. We built our civilization despite having to fight for survival every single day. That difference shows." The transport's engines began warming up, their unusual harmonics making nearby alien technology behave strangely. "The Vex swarm was just another predator species to us," Park Woo-jin added casually. "We've been dealing with predators our entire evolutionary history. The only difference is that this time, the predator was threatening people we've learned to care about. As the human transport vanished into hyperspace, leaving no trace of its passage, the council representatives stood in stunned silence. They had gathered to witness what they expected would be a noble but futile gesture by a primitive species. Instead, they had watched the galaxy's newest members reveal themselves as something far more dangerous than any threat they had previously encountered. In the days that followed, Council intelligence services worked frantically to understand what humanity had been doing during their decades of membership. The intercepted communications about previous pest control operations suggested a pattern of quietly eliminating threats that other species hadn't even known existed. How many extinction-level dangers had been removed from the galaxy by human exterminators working in the shadows? How many civilizations owed their continued existence to cleanup operations they had never heard about? Admiral Zephyros, tasked with updating the Council's military protocols, created a new classification in the highly restricted files that only the highest-ranking officials could access. The category was simple and direct: human solutions for extinction-level problems only. The galaxy had welcomed humanity as junior members learning to participate in galactic civilization. The truth was far more disturbing. They had invited the universe's most efficient killers to join their ranks, and those killers had been quietly protecting everyone else while being dismissed as primitives. Now everyone knew what humanity was capable of. The question that haunted every council member was simple: what else were they capable of that the galaxy hadn't discovered yet?